We all love those medieval games, telling us about long-gone eras when the world was soaked in magic and dragons roamed the sky. Just jump into the animals and get your information firsthand while experiencing a thrilling adventure as the game's most important character. What's wrong? You said historical games, didn't you?
What?
As someone with a university's degree in history, I love the fact that there are so many games taking inspiration from actual history. They are just better at getting people interested in long-gone eras than any lessons at school. But when reading through various online comments, I started to suspect that most people are not aware of the limitations of video games and do not question the portrayal of various aspects, cultures and time periods. My name is Fjalladis, and this video is the first part of a small series diving into game design, especially on clothing, since I also happen to be a cosplayer. Let's have a discussion on some unlucky scapegoats, such as the Assassin's Creed series, but also discuss strategy games like Age of Empires and Foundation, and my personal nominee for Best in Custom that I will reveal at the end of the video. Before we go into any details, let's have a look at the outfit's function in the video game. First of all, every character must wear something, otherwise it would be difficult to get anything else than PEGI 18. This may sound like a joke, but there's some truth in it, don't you agree? And even the revealing and absent pieces of clothing serve the second purpose, which is giving us information about the wearer and the situation. In a video game with multiple characters, there's only a limited time for learning about their background, motives and character traits. However, an outfit can tell you a lot without even using up any words or time. This can include simple things such as a person's wealth or gender, but also tell us something about their motives. Further, the player can also express themselves with an outfit or skin, so that the person in the game and the one playing can merge their personalities. However, you would not like to have an exact copy of yourself in the game, would you? Imagine one of the Assassin's Creed games and the 15th century main character runs around in your t-shirt and jeans. So, clothing also contributes to the general atmosphere and can tell you something about the society and time the game is set. Why wouldn't they just take the original clothing and make a 3D model out of it? Well, it's not that simple, as we will see in the next part. Although I wish that video games would take greater effort on historical accuracy, there are also some limitations that we should talk about. Let's start with one of the newer Assassin's Creed games, Valhalla. The game is set in the time of King Alfred the Great, so we are talking late 9th century here, a time of cultural and military conflicts in Britain. The main character is part of the so-called Viking culture, and I will try to stick with that term, although it is wrong on so many levels. So, what do we know about Viking clothing? Unfortunately, we only have sparse information. We only have small parts of various items, but not even a complete garment or even a whole outfit. After a millennium, natural fabrics are basically gone. In fact, there will only be small leftovers where metal parts protected the fiber. For women's clothing, this mainly means the area where the oval brooches are set. And even their position and the look of the surrounding garments are heavily discussed among scholars. To sum it up, even if the game directors would like to aim at a historically accurate depiction of 9th century Britain, they would lack information. The designs could only be guessed. However, the picture changes as soon as we look at one of the other parts of the series, let's say as a unity. It is set around the events of the French Revolution in 1789. For that time, we have plenty of information. You can scroll through the online databases of well-known international museums and will find both original clothing, including underwear and accessories, and fashion plates that depict the way in which they should be worn. And instead, they are presenting to us Elise de la Serre, a French highborn lady, in some trousers with open hair. Just why? While I stopped myself from having a rant, I can openly admit that I cosplayed her in the past. Sometimes my cosplayer personality rebels against the historian, you know? Coming back to the topic, even if there's enough evidence and source materials readily available, video games often choose a different design. And there must have been a reason. We should explore that. So far, we can all agree that the outfit is more than just a decorative element. It has a meaning, visualizing the character's traits, motivations, and social background. In the Assassin's Creed series, we get to know many outstanding characters that change the world by killing whoever the questlog tells them to murder. These people are above any historical standards. They are just free to do whatever they like and however they want to dress. Although I'm just kidding right now, this actually refers to some discussion I had in the past, in which people wanted to convince me that a game including an animus and an ancient godlike civilization does not need to aim at historical accuracy in costumes. The game even states it was just inspired by historical events. While I can understand the point where they are coming from, anything apart from the animus backstory seems to take place in actual history, with well-known characters. In my opinion, someone dressed in an extraordinary style would not manage to blend in. And isn't that the main purpose of the assassins and the hidden ones, staying just under the radar to manipulate in the shadows? In addition, some of the newer games also feature so-called discovery tours, which have a more educational purpose. You can walk around in the world they created for the games and get some information on various topics. However, the NPC characters are still wearing their in-game clothing, and there is some highly questionable artwork that tells you about Eivor's outfit, which would fit more into a God of War game than actual 9th century Britain. At this point, I would like to ask the humble question if this can be justified with "it's a design choice" if used in history lessons at school. Don't worry, the rest of the video will not be a compilation of me ranting about bad design choices. In the end, we are here to understand the reasons behind them. Making realistic clothing can use up many resources, such as time, money, and work power. A lot of models are reused in the Assassin's Creed series, although the games include time jumps to follow the main character's path. In AC Unity, you can spot 70s-60s fashion directly next to 70s-90s dresses. However, I will always argue that a good story is more important to me than a nice piece of clothing. It was also not that easy to make fabric move in a realistic kind of way, and you will see a lot of clipping in older games. On the other side, in-game clothing is far more talented to hack the 3D models than actual garments in real life. I remember recreating Altair's hood, and it just wouldn't fit without any additional seams. I guess most 3D artists have never sewn an actual garment. Sometimes they try to make it look realistically by adding funny oversized stitching. In reality, this stitching would not only be completely unstable, but also ugly. However, realistic and small seams would not be visible on screen. NPCs are often less lucky in getting any details, especially in older games. Therefore, the outfits do not look complete and sophisticated. Of course, this got better over the years, but not every company used it to achieve more historical accuracy. So maybe it's not only because of technical limitations or the programmer's personal taste that we see fantasy outfits in historical games. It could also be that the modern audience requires solutions that fit their modern taste. Although I am already struggling to understand people's taste in everyday modern clothing, I could imagine that some types of historical fashion seems alienating to the average gamer. Just imagine Elise in real 18th century court dress. Also, your average gamer in puberty would not be very happy about some stays that have a heavy impact on how the female upper body is formed. Or let me come back to my favorite scapegoat, the AC Valhalla. After watching 6 seasons of Vikings and an additional 2 of the spin-off, also called Valhalla, 5 seasons of The Last Kingdom plus the movie, and various Hollywood pieces, all called something with Northmen, people have a pretty good impression on how the cruel Vikings should look like. Let's make a checklist. First of all, don't wash the actor for 3 weeks. Next, add some additional mud. Unfortunately, everything back then was brown. Guess from now on that's your favorite color palette. It was colder before climate change hit, so they definitely need some furs. But not too many. Freezing makes an excellent grumpy face. To sum it up, there might be a very stubble picture on how a true Viking warrior should look like. I guess the best choice is to give people what they want to get, so that they will continue to pay money and you can continue to make games. Maybe this is the reason that so many games include mythological and fantasy elements. I certainly have a good time playing Northgard or Age of Mythology, but the non-historical elements are very obvious in those games, while our so-called historical games seem to be showing reality to an untrained eye. To sum it up, the average player is constantly confronted with stereotypes and might be asking for pieces of art that fit into those stereotypes. This is nothing that can be changed overnight. So far, we have mainly talked about action RPGs, and Assassin's Creed clearly took the main stage. But there are so many more options if you want to play a game with an historical flair. The first game that got me interested in history was Age of Empires 2. As a 12-year-old, I spent dozens of hours replaying the campaign of Joan of Arc, and she truly became one of my heroes. One of my main topics for the final exam was the 100 Years' War, so I never lost interest in that topic. As a teenager, I did not have access to a university library, and the in-game wiki was a wonderful source of information. It did not include anything on clothing, so we will have to judge the in-game footage. Our peasants all look quite the same. I guess it is self-evident that people in the Middle Ages did not dress as identical twins, but again, creating different variations of the same unit might not make any sense. On the one hand, this would eat up resources, and on the other, it could be visually confusing. In a game that requires fast reactions and includes up to 500 units, you will not pay a lot of attention to one simple farmer. I would like to draw your attention to color coding in strategy games. Normally, you choose one to represent your party, and the enemies will either have different ones or, in some games, will be all red together. My favorite one is orange, but I don't think that many people share that love, so convincing a whole nation to just wear one color could be challenging, as well as wearing the same stuff for around about a millennium. Call me crazy for analyzing color coding in a game from the last millennium. You have a point. What about games that are made for single players and do not need a distinction between your troops and the enemy troops? If you are not into military strategy games, Foundation might be a proper alternative for you. Also set in some sort of Middle Ages, you can build up a small village. This includes setting up crafts and trading. It comes in handy that inhabitants of different jobs also look quite different, already from a distance. And it adds variety instead of just having one female and one male model. Although there are many regulations on clothing from various cities and regions during the Middle Ages, there was, again, no such thing as color coding or uniform styles for various groups of citizens. Exceptions apply, but I agree that this was a valuable choice when it comes to accessibility. In addition, this game is still in early access, so maybe the future will see more variation. I hope that upcoming AI tools will enable both smaller companies and bigger ones to put more resources into historical accuracy and maybe find a nice compromise between accessibility, variety, and simplicity. Although we collected some more or less good reasons for a video game to limit historical accuracy, I would love to end on a positive note. Fortunately, there are some games that do it quite well. Let me present to you my personal nominee for Best in Historical Custom. One of my favorites is Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is set in 1403 Bohemia. Interestingly, even Wikipedia writes about the historical accuracy, so we can assume it was considered a highlight and not seen as a limitation. When walking around town, you can see a colorful variety of clothing, and each character is dressed according to their social status and gender. I am neither an expert on men's fashion, nor do I know much about actual armor, but realizing that these guys are easily recognizable as guards, while not looking like identical twins, is something that stands out positively. I also love that the main character's clothing is not a set outfit, but instead a combination of various layers that can be adjusted to the situation. Speaking of adjustment, it is remarkable on how the NPCs comment on your outfit. If you wear the clothing of a high-ranking person, they will assume you're a part of that group and refer accordingly. They will also react to torn and bloody garments, so washing and repairing is part of the mechanics. And it gets even better. People are wearing things on their head. Since we are not used to covering our heads in modern times, many games often refuse to give their characters any headwear, or at least have an option to turn it invisible. But Kingdom Come Deliverance does not even spare the NPCs. It contributes so much to make the outfits look complete. I know that there has been some discussion on whether the game is in fact as historically accurate as claimed, and I already spotted some questionable dresses when recording the clips. But for me, it is still an outstanding example, since the team clearly put a lot of effort into research and made believable pieces, while still being interesting to a modern audience. Kingdom Come Deliverance sold about 6 million times, so I hope that studios will see the great potential and follow their path in the future. In the end, a video game is just a piece of art and does not need to be taken too seriously. However, it becomes critical when they are promoted as historically accurate, but only serve stereotypes and prejudices. Therefore, it is very important that game developers guarantee transparency on their aims and values. As a cosplayer and historian, I will always consider custom design to be one of the main elements when it comes to gaming, but this is only my personal choice. I would be very interested in your opinions when it comes to gaming, so take some time and write them in the comments below. Thanks for joining me today, and make sure to subscribe so that you will not miss any videos of the upcoming series on game design, as well as further projects on cosplay and historical dresses. Bye!